Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being with us on this cold, dreary day. Um, as we gather in May, are really talking about, first of all, something that's been a tradition since 1949, and that is May being the month when we celebrate mental health awareness. And it's been a time to really open the conversations, think about the stigma that still prevents people from getting help, and treating mental and emotional health needs as different than physical health. And it really is by sharing the stories that we create a more compassionate and resilient world. And we know that some of the political climate right now is causing significant stress and anxiety. Nearly 68%, I mean, that's just an amazing number of people right now are reporting that the political climate in this country is a major source of their stress. And that being, as you might expect, borne disproportionately by immigrants and people of color. In May is also Asian American and Pacific Islander Month, Heritage Month, where we honor the rich culture, histories, and contributions of American Asians and Pacific Islanders in the community. There's been a number of great events across Middlesex County. And we also know that that is a community that often encounters mental health challenges where there are stigma or cultural barriers that make getting help difficult. And the problems are compounded by discrimination and bias. And recent data shows that 15% of Asian American and Pacific Islander individuals have experienced mental health challenges in the past year. So it really underscores the need to have available, accessible, and culturally sensitive mental health supports. One highlight in my community, I live in Belmont, and Belmont's done a great job organizing the AAPI community in general. But on May the 4th, they did a run, really a great opportunity both for physical fitness and cultural celebration. And the event raises money for initiatives in the community and also just showcases the strength of that community. So if anybody has events that are happening in their communities and you want to share oh, perfect. I see Winchester's putting one in. Please follow that example and spread that. You also may have seen, and if you haven't, please go to our website or our Twitter and take a look. This month we hosted our Empowering Girls event in Newton. We had almost 600 young women from across the county. And the conference is really focused on giving girls a day when they just aren't thinking about anything else except setting goals for themselves, building confidence, helping to think about how they promote themselves and foster healthy relationships. It's one of my favorite days of the year. We had amazing speakers who came to talk to the girls. I will say, and I think this is something that to reflect on for all of us, one of the pieces that one of our speakers talked to the girls about was how important it is for everybody, no matter how old we are, to always kind of have a 5-minute elevator pitch about themselves. That when they meet people, they're able to introduce themselves confidently, talk a little bit about where they came from, what's important about them. And if you think about the fact that we know from the research that public speaking is actually the number one fear of adults, it was really amazing. After our speaker had gone through with the girls and talked about what it was important to include, she just had girls come up out of the audience to do that. And these were girls as young as 7th and 8th grade, and they just did an amazing job. They were up on that stage. The place was absolutely packed, and they just went through their little discussion about themselves. So it was very interesting. Today, we're going to focus on the evolving landscape of immigration policy, with a special emphasis on DACA, which is the deferred action for childhood arrivals. And we're going to talk about the latest court decisions, the policy updates, and what they mean for those in our community who are DACA recipients and the broader community. And I'm really happy to welcome this morning Dan Berger, who is a partner at Green and Spiegel, which is the country's leading the academic and medical immigration team. And Dan is also an academic fellow at Cornell Law School and an honorary fellow of the American Academy of Adoption Attorneys. Dan co-founded and helps lead a really innovative DACA clinic at Cornell focused on employment-based options. And it was described in the Boston Globe article, which we'll put out again to everybody. And last year, he helped to lead a pilot program for President Biden's waiver program for Dreamers to move into status through a sponsorship by their employers. And that was also described in an article that the New York Times ran about that program. And we'll put all of those out for people. And Dan was invited by President Biden to the White House just about a year ago in June of 2024 to make the announcement about that program and be recognized for his leadership on that issue. And Dan's going to talk to us a little bit about the legal and political challenges that are facing DACA recipients right now. There's been incredible uncertainty created by some of the court decisions. Renewals are being allowed, but not new applications, which causes that instability both for those individuals who are Dreamers as well as their families. And looking for that permanent legislative solution has drawn a lot of good advocacy, but so far not a lot of action. So I'm going to turn it over to Dan to talk to us a little bit about all of those things. So Dan, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the invitation, and hello, everybody. I'm actually coming to you from Ithaca, New York. I'm here at Cornell. We actually have a team of 7 lawyers who work on this DACA clinic. And on a personal note, my daughter lives in Watertown and works for the International Institute of New England. So I feel a connection to the work that you all are doing. Just really quickly before I get into a few slides, I just wanted to pick up on a couple of themes that that DA Ryan had shared. Number one is mental health. I do a lot of talks for immigrants and undocumented students and DACA students at different colleges and universities. Some of the most successful are where I'm paired up with with somebody from the counseling service, because it really, and they'll usually say, bad news is hard emotionally, but you can make a plan. DACA has been subject, and most immigration policies now are subject to continuing uncertainty, sometimes day by day. And that's exhausting and takes a real mental health toll when people can't make a plan for what they're doing. I also wanted to acknowledge that we have just hired, I'm really excited about this, of counsel Carrie Doyle, who some of you may know, who is a longtime attorney in the Boston area, doing many wonderful things. And most recently, she was, it's a different title, but basically she was general counsel to ICE during the Biden administration, and brings a wealth of experience. So happy to, and she and I have been thinking a lot about these issues. So with no further ado, let me share my screen, and I'll tell you a little bit more about DACA. Okay. Okay, that looks good on my end. So please, please somebody say something if it's not clear. So basically what's happening with DACA is continuing lawsuits, really going back to 2017, challenging, and the themes of all these lawsuits, I mean, are themes that you're going to see in immigration litigation for the next few years. Like, whatever your politics, it's almost everything the Trump administration is doing in immigration is being challenged. So there is a suit where the state of Texas has sued the United States, claiming that President Obama overstepped his authority in making the DACA program. That lawsuit is now it's going back and forth between the Fifth Circuit and the Court of Appeals in Texas and an individual judge in Texas. The legal issues are extremely complicated, and again, I'm happy to talk about them, but basically it has to do with what the president can do without formal notice and comment rulemaking. Originally, President Biden has tried to fix this by going back and reissuing DACA, really verbatim, not changing anything from the Obama program, but reissuing it as a federal regulation with with notice and comment rulemaking. The state of Texas is still arguing that it's too much to do even then under the Administrative Procedure Act. But the other thing that's really interesting about this lawsuit is that a lot of conservative judges don't like nationwide injunctions. They really didn't like when a judge in Massachusetts and a judge in Hawaii stopped the Trump travel ban in the first Trump administration, one judge issuing a nationwide injunction. So one of the things that's going back and forth in the court here is whether, with Texas as the plaintiff, whether any final decision striking down DACA would be only limited to Texas, which would really be fascinating because then that would open up the rest of the country to processing new DACA applications again. The timing is really uncertain, but at this, and federal court litigation is never linear, but I think what we're thinking is that this will probably get to the Supreme Court, that one side or the other will appeal, and it'll probably get to the Supreme Court, and a decision would be made sometime summer of next year. Before we dive into more details about DACA, I just wanted to say that everything I'm saying about DACA is really relevant to many, many other people that you've probably heard about. There are a lot of humanitarian immigration categories, parole. The Biden administration let in, millions, well, over 1 million people on parole from Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela, Afghanistan, Ukraine, and so forth. There's something called TPS. The asylum cases are taking forever, so there are a lot of people with work cards who are here waiting for asylum. So big picture, there are now literally millions of people, and many in Massachusetts, because I know because my daughter works with some of them, who have work cards. Many of them are working. They're an important part of the workforce. They're an important part of our communities, but they have a fragile immigration status that the Trump administration in most of these cases is trying to end these, and there is litigation trying to save the programs. And we just don't know exactly what's going to happen with all of those, and we're watching it very carefully. One other interesting twist to this, to the litigation, again, it's really complicated, is that DACA has two pieces, and I'll talk about that in a minute here. So DACA, again, was an administrative policy created by the Obama administration in 2012. At that point, there were close to 1 million people who were brought here as children and had grown up. They need to have a high school degree or a college degree or in the military to qualify, and no significant criminal record at all. So it's a very, very sympathetic population, as you can imagine, but also one where having a work card is tremendously important because of their education or because of the education that they have. So DACA provides protection from deportation, which is important, and it also provides work permission. So again, the Texas lawsuit is trying to parse out, do we keep the protection from deportation but stop the work cards? And right now there are about 530,000 people who have DACA in the country. So taking away work cards from over 500,000 people would be, even if they're allowed to stay here, would really be incredibly difficult. DACA is not a status, and that's a really important word in immigration. It doesn't lead anywhere. It was really intended as a bridge by President Obama for Congress to get their act together and pass a DREAM Act to provide a path to citizenship. It hasn't happened. People do need to renew every 2 years. It's not automatically renewed by filing. So one of the things we do worry about is that even if DACA survives, if the Trump administration continues to have an extreme vetting policy, meaning more questions are asked about every case, plus a reduction in federal workforce. So basically you have fewer people doing the same number of cases and having to spend more minutes on each case. We do worry that even if DACA survives, that people's work cards will be delayed and there'll be gaps in work permission. And again, just quick statistics. It's changed a little bit, but not too much. Over 500,000 people with DACA worldwide. Many of them are in California, but they are all over the place. 99% have graduated from high school because they needed to have been here by 2007. So these are by definition people who are a little bit older now. Almost half of them have college education, and most of them are working in all sorts of different jobs. I know DACA recipients who are doctors at hospitals in Boston and almost any other job you can think of. Um, so again, the Trump administration has not ended DACA. They have not, unlike many other humanitarian immigration categories, the administration has not taken any affirmative effort to try to do anything to try to stop DACA. I think they seem to be letting it go through in the courts. Renewals do continue. And we encourage people to renew as early as possible because obviously we don't want a gap in work permission. Advance parole is a travel document. It's a pre-approved travel document that people can get if they have DACA to be able to travel, and that's a benefit. That was stopped during the first Trump administration. It's still working now, which is really exciting. And for those who did not have a lawful entry originally, so let's say somebody came to the US across the border with their family at age 3, they don't have a lawful entry. If that person travels on advanced parole and reenters, they then have a lawful entry, which can help them in certain immigration categories in the future. So we are encouraging people to consider advanced parole now if they haven't, and if they don't have a lawful entry, at least while advanced parole is working. Um, Okay. I think that there's that old saying, to a hammer, everything looks like a nail, or maybe it's backwards. But anyway, obviously, I'm running a program now where we provide legal consultations to DACA recipients. But I'll tell you, like the average DACA recipient has a family immigration history that's really like a law school final exam question. To really understand it, a lot of times they don't know because they came here, as very young children. We have to do Freedom of Information Act requests. We have to talk to parents and grandparents. There's a whole range of, and I think just by nature, because this is a highly educated population, we not only have family and humanitarian categories to consider to try to move them forward. Again, we're not waiting for Congress to pass a DREAM Act. We're really trying to take every DACA recipient one by one and move them forward. But we're also thinking a lot about employment-based options and trying to talk to employers of DACA recipients, whether it's a government agency or anything else, and talk to the DACA recipients themselves, take a deep dive into their immigration history and see if there is a plan to move them forward. And just really quickly, in terms of employer sponsorship, there are green cards, there are temporary visas. The most common I'll skip that. The most common green card is a labor certification. This can literally be done for any job. I think a lot of times there are a lot of wonderful um, nonprofit legal service agencies in the Boston area that do immigration work. Most of them specialize in family and humanitarian categories, and employment-based categories, especially in this administration, are probably working better than the family and humanitarian category. So we really want to make sure that we're screening everybody for these. I've done green cards, employment-based green cards for dishwashers, landscapers. It can be done for any job, any full-time job based on the employer's need for that person and difficulty finding somebody to do it. The other option is an H-1B professional working visa. A lot of DACA folks have a bachelor's degree or the equivalent, and so if they're working in their field, employer sponsorship could be an option. And then what happened last year, which was really interesting, and it was done, let's just don't say too much, but the Biden administration did some things very publicly, like Parole in Place, which was a program to try to help the undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens. That unfortunately, some of the things that were done very publicly were challenged in court and stopped, and Parole in Place was stopped. The D3 waiver is something that was done very, very quietly. There's nothing on any government website that talks about DACA or Dreamers with this website. It talks about graduates of U.S. colleges and universities in an attempt to help, not draw scrutiny. But the big picture is that many DACA recipients have what's called unlawful presence. That means they were here for some period of time as adults without any permission until they got DACA. So let's say I got DACA when I'm 19. That means I have a year of unlawful presence between 18 and 19. Um, so that requires a waiver to move into a temporary visa. And what the Biden administration did, again, very, very quietly, is just speed up those waivers. They used to take a year. Now for graduates of U.S. colleges and universities, they take days or sometimes weeks. So that's huge. That means that we have a better ability to try to move people who are on DACA into a longer term status. And I'm just gonna skip along just for uh, just to keep this moving. I did want to share quickly this informed immigrant link. So big picture is that as you can imagine, finding an employer sponsor for somebody who has a fragile immigration status can be hard. I know because my daughter's doing it. She's trying to help find jobs for recent Haitian arrivals who have temporary. Well, that's kind of annoying that it's moving like that. Okay. So anyway, before I get to statistics about our program, it's a difficult pitch to an employer to say, please hire this person, but they have a temporary work card, but the Trump administration could take it away anytime, so we're not sure how long they're going to be able to keep working. Or they have a temporary work card that the Trump administration may take away, but please engage in sponsoring them, even though they haven't been working for you because that will help them move into status. So the best way to do that is really networking. And we talk to students all the time. If you know any people who are in college or university or even high school, the very best thing they can do is network. If they do unpaid internships, if they talk to alumni, if they work with the career office, and by the time they graduate, they're not just applying cold to jobs, but they have an employer who knows them and is interested in them. That's where we get traction. And so this kind of networking is not, I think it's not quite as natural to some people in that generation, but it's particularly important for this population. So in our clinic at Cornell, which is called Path to Papers, we've done over 850 consultations in the last year. We found that 69% of them were eligible for some kind of employment-based work visa. 46 was this temporary H-1B visa. 81% had something that they didn't know about. And again, many, even though DACA recipients are generally highly educated, they haven't always had access to quality legal services, or maybe their families had never thought about trying to access legal services because they just didn't think there was any option. So I'm going to stop sharing there, and I'd be very happy to answer any questions about any of this.
Questions, comments?
Ian, can I just ask you to go over what DACA specifically is? When you mentioned 2007, prior to that, I guess, what was the process? And then when we think of it being fragile, that status, that could change at any moment, I'm assuming, if the policy of this administration changes and gets rid of it. I was unclear when you made that comment.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I should have just explained at first what DACA was. Thank you. So the president has a wide variety of discretionary authorities. It's kind of prosecutorial discretion. It's a little bit like the decision, let's say, of a law enforcement officer not to charge somebody with speeding or whatever. So so here, what happened before 2012 when DACA came in was that there were this million undocumented young people who had come here as children, were in school, but then they would graduate and not be working. And I remember meeting people who were graduating from college, graduating from medical school, even graduating from law school, and couldn't work. And so what President Obama did in 2012 was to use deferred action, which is one of these discretionary prosecutorial discretion remedies, and saying specifically, the US government is not going to enforce against you. We're going to give you protection from deportation. That's deferred action. And with that deferred action, you get an unrestricted work card. And to qualify, you need to have been here since 2007. You need to have been undocumented in 2012, and you need to have a pretty clean criminal record. It's, there's argument at the margins, but any kind of significant criminal conviction really leaves out DACA. And the last thing is that the person would have to have a high school diploma, a GED, or be in really those are the requirements. Most people have more education than that. So that's DACA. DACA is just a temporary 2 year at a time exercise of prosecutorial discretion by the president to say you can stay here, you don't have to be looking over your shoulder to worry that there's going to be enforcement, and you get an unrestricted work card.
And that's irrespective of the parent status.
Exactly. President Obama also tried to do the same thing for parents of U.S. citizen children, called DAPA. That was stopped in the courts, but DACA has survived. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is that because new DACA applications have been on hold, so basically because of the court battle, nobody has been able to apply for DACA fresh since 2017. That means that people who found out about it or were younger and didn't know and didn't apply or didn't have a high school diploma don't have DACA. So if you look at college and university populations right now in Boston, in the eastern Massachusetts area, most undocumented students do not have DACA. We've gone back to where we were pre-DACA in a way. Most of them are going to graduate and not be able to work. And that's, again, why we want to make sure we get to each of them, screen them, try to do a deep dive into their situation and see if there's any way beside DACA that, I suppose there's some, litigation is never, we never know exactly what's going to happen. So I suppose it's possible DACA could survive the court challenge next year. But if not, we want to try to take people one by one and find a way to move them forward, often through employer sponsorship.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I have a legal question.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you so much for that overview. So you talked about, you referenced the decision, I think it was at the Fifth Circuit. So that has a national impact, is that right?
Well, there is a nationwide injunction against any new DACA applications right now, and that was issued by the district court in Texas. But the Fifth Circuit has in there the most recent action on DACA is that the Fifth Circuit has remanded to the district court for more for further proceedings. But in the Fifth Circuit order, they questioned whether a nationwide injunction or nationwide impact of this of whatever the final decision is really appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? All right, perfect. Dan, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
This afternoon.
All right, take care. Bye, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you. Many of you who've been with us for a bit will remember we talked a while ago about the team that had been created by the state police called the HART team, the Hate Awareness Response Team. And that name has now been broadened to include the Anti-Terrorism Unit. And I'm really happy to have with us today someone who served with great help to us in the Middlesex DA's office, and that's Sergeant Matthew Owens. Sergeant Owens is a part of that team. He's one of the 5 troopers that are working closely with both federal and state law enforcement, including the FBI and the resident agencies in Lowell and Worcester and Lakeville, to both investigate and respond to hate crimes and hate-based incidents. All of the HART team members are task force officers for the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. They hold top secret security clearances, and they are federal deputies, which really positions the team members to support a complex hate crime terrorism investigation at every level. As I mentioned, Sergeant Owens has been with the state police since 2011. He was promoted to sergeant last year. He brings to this work extensive experience in doing homicide, death investigations, domestic and international terrorism cases. He spent a number of years in the unit assigned to our office. He's also worked closely with the U.S. Attorney's Office. And he also has local experience, which is really important when you do these investigations on the ground. He spent 5 years as a police officer, both in the town of Belmont and the city of Cambridge. And Sergeant Owens holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Connecticut and a master's degree in criminal justice from Northeastern. So it's really nice to have you back with us, Matt. Thank you for doing this.
Of course. Thanks for the kind words. Thanks for having me. I'm glad everyone made it through the not so great weather today. But in talking with vulnerable populations, what Dan mentioned with anti-terrorism unit as well as HART, that's where our focus is, the protected classes. And I know some of you may have sat through and listened to some of the presentation that's previously done by HART, specifically Lieutenant Strazulo and Sergeant Tedesco. This hopefully will be more informative. I'm going to go over pretty fast, quickly about the history of HART. We don't really need to get too much into that, but I know you guys want to hear more about the application of HART. So I'm going to try to share my screen if I can.
Matt, I think I just made you co-host.
Okay. I don't know if okay. Apologies, I'm trying to just get it in present mode so you don't have to look at my face the entire time. All right, there we go. All right, generally our target audience for our presentations are community groups, faith-based groups, law enforcement. Like I said, some of you guys may have heard the previous slide or presentation conducted by HART members, but like I said, we're going to move quickly and try to get to what you need to know because we just want you guys to be prepared. Unfortunately, it's not, it seems like not if, but when a hate crime or hate-based incident affects a member of your community. We really want you guys to know what to do, who to call, and kind of the best practices as we move forward. Basically having the appropriate knowledge, resources that you can direct them. We're going to go over case intake, hate crimes, the most commonly reported crimes, and then, like I said, ultimately ending with case briefs, all while stressing the importance of reporting to your law enforcement of jurisdiction. So we don't need to go over too much of the background. I'm sure most of you guys heard that last time, but I will briefly mention, HART was established in 2023 in response to the increased reporting of hate crimes and hate-based incidences. However, the foundation of HART was formed over 30 years ago when Governor William Weld established the Hate Crimes Task Force in 1991. Basically, the goal of the task force was to provide support in best practices, prevalence, deterrence, and prevention of hate crimes within the Commonwealth. There were 4 recommendations of the task force to adopt, and that was 1, have each municipality identify a civil rights officer, transparency in reporting data to EOPS, training for all officers in hate crimes via the MPTC, enhanced training for civil rights officers. And like I said, in 2023, Governor Healy enacted the initiative to combat hate crimes and form the HART unit. I've been only with the hate crime since January, so I'm really I'm new to this aspect of criminality. But ultimately, we want to stress just breaking it down. It's still a crime, and we're going to go over all of that today. The mission of HART is collaborative. We aim to enhance relationships on all levels of law enforcement, local, federal, with all our partners. HART aims to act as a conduit to local and federal law enforcement to ensure most appropriate legal action can be taken. HART can assist with determining a federal nexus or whether a state charge may be more appropriate, but obviously, ultimately, you want to contact your DA's office as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office to ensure the best course of legal action is pursued. But again, it's all about collaboration like we have here today. Hart seeks to establish relationships with district attorney's office, such as this, again, to ensure information sharing and to ensure hate crimes are recorded and are charged appropriately, or not charged because they don't meet the elements of the crime. These partnerships are really invaluable to enhance information sharing and to identify statewide patterns or trends. Again, we seek to encourage reporting within communities, faith-based organizations, law enforcement. We really want to stress to get the reporting in. We are stressing to all officers that we come in contact with to document, get the reporting in, encourage community members to get it going. Like DA Ryan said, everyone within the Hart ATU are federally deputized by the U.S. Marshal and function as task force officers with the FBI. We all maintain TS clearances. ATU Hart personnel are assigned full-time to the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Specifically, most ATU Hart members are assigned to CT2, which is counterterrorism, the domestic squad for the FBI. As TFOs assigned to CT2, Hart members attempt to deter, detect, and prevent acts of domestic terrorism, targeted violence, racially motivated violent extremists, anti-government, anti-authority, animal rights extremists, or single violent issue extremists. So it's kind of like a breakdown of where Hart is situated organizationally within the state police. Under DHS, all Hart members are assigned to the anti-terrorism unit. So it's not, obviously it was well above my pay grade when Hart was created. I wasn't even in the unit, but it's situated within the ATU. So all Hart members, like I said, are members of the anti-terrorism for the state police. And the way this actually works out, it allows us to be that conduit, like I said, for local as well as our federal partners. Our personnel is situated, like D.A. Ryan said, in the FBI resident agencies of Lowell, Worcester, Lakeville, and two of us are situated at FBI Boston. I'll briefly go over the case initiation. Just to give you a little background, fusion centers are the central point for the collection, synthesis, analysis, and dissemination of strategic, tactical intelligence to law enforcement. Intelligence analysts, first responders, private sectors to assist federal government in the mission of national security. Nationally, there are 80 fusion centers. Of those fusion centers nationally, only about 30 operate 24/7. So within the Commonwealth, we're extremely lucky to have 2 fusion centers. Most of you know the Commonwealth Fusion Centers operated by the state police and the Boston Regional Intelligence Center operated by the Boston Police Department. The CFC is the principal state repository for threat-based related information, criminal activity, threats to public safety, and terror-related activity. The CFC provides a variety of functions for federal, state, regional, and local public safety agencies, as well as a variety of public, private sector entities to facilitate and the analysis and sharing of critical information. Nationally, the FBI operates NTOC, the National Threat Operations Center. Again, together, all of these fusion centers, not only within Mass, but collectively throughout the country, whether it be local police departments kicking information, a tribal law enforcement agency, members of the private sector, community, faith-based organizations, all this resources and sharing together in a collaborative nature allows not only members of ATU Hart, but as well as FBI, JTTF to investigate and mitigate threats that unfortunately are continually ongoing throughout the country. I assume most of us on the call today reside or represent departments or organizations or faith-based organizations within Middlesex County. So most of you will be reporting to the Commonwealth Fusion Center. However, someone in your group or congregation may reside or work or ultimately be involved in an incident within one of the 9 cities or towns that report to the BRIC. Specifically, the BRIC captures incidents that occur within, like the map. I apologize, it's blurry, but if you bear with me, I'll just mention the names quickly. Boston, Brookline, Cambridge, Chelsea, Everett, Revere, Somerville, Quincy, and Winthrop. So again, the remaining cities or towns within the Commonwealth report to the CFC. The CFC is staffed 24/7. I believe nationally only about 30 of the 80 or so fusion centers nationally are run 24/7. So like I said, we're very fortunate in the Commonwealth to have 2 fusion centers, but one with the CFC that runs 24/7. The next slide basically shows how or illustrates when a suspicious activity report is generated by a local police department and how the FBI, JTTF, and fusion centers work in conjunction to access and or investigate threat-related activity. Ultimately, this system would not work efficiently or at all without buy-in from the public. That being businesses, local PDs, all these relationships with fusion centers, the community, JTTF, are what enable the ATU HART personnel to access these threats as they come in. So, you know, as it shows, you know, you can start kind of pretty much wherever you want, but ultimately, most of the information we see regarding hate crimes or hate-based incidents starts at the local level. The police department will either get a call or learn through someone within their community that an incident has occurred. Hopefully they'll go out, document that report, you know, investigate it, secure the scene, take pictures, witness statements, be as thorough as possible in getting this information, ultimately kicking that information to the CFC, the BRIC, if they're obviously out of state, NTOC, or whoever their local fusion center is. This information ultimately gets passed to us, and it can alert ATU HART as well as our JTTF partners. So that's kind of a graph illustrating that. I will get into, so in my opinion, this is a straightforward way of looking at hate crimes versus hate speech incidences. I know I'm moving quickly, but I just want to cover as much as I can. In my experience, at times, officers get a little hesitant when dealing with specifically two crimes, sexual assaults and hate crimes. And I don't think it may be due to lack of education, but I think more likely or not, it's not wanting to make an investigative misstep or mistake in the investigation. So like I said, we are really stressing to slow it down, secure the scene, investigate it, witness statements, documentation as much as possible. Ultimately, though, don't overthink it, okay? You need a criminal offense motivated by bias to have a hate crime. A criminal event with no bias at all is strictly just a crime. An event motivated by bias without a crime is a hate-based incident. So there's many forms like this online. This is, like I said, one of my favorites just because it breaks it down very easy when it can become a time where people get overwhelmed or maybe a little nervous and they think, okay, they know there's going to be media attention around these cases. Because like I said, unfortunately, it's not if, it's more like when a hate-based incident occurs or hate-based crime occurs in your community. So with that, you know, eyes will be on, and just if you can get out to your officers, your congregants, you know, get as much information as possible so the local police department of jurisdiction can investigate it, and we can help out in any way we can. Okay, next we have up, we want to continue to stress the importance of reporting and leveraging partnerships. We understand that there are barriers to reporting hate crimes and reporting, you know, crimes in general to law enforcement, you know, whether it's distrust, social, political, economic, government normalization, internalization of cultural differences. Again, we're understanding of these and intend to leverage community partnerships, engagements with our faith-based community organizations to assist in getting victims and community members to report. So we are obviously fortunate enough to live in this great country and enjoy the freedoms and protections given to us under the First Amendment. With that being said, no matter how vile, reprehensible, repugnant the speech may be, in the Commonwealth, without a criminal event motivated by bias, it is not a hate crime. We got to think back to the formula, right? Crime plus motivation is a hate crime. there ultimately must be an underlying crime to have a hate crime. The First Amendment, like I said, allows hate groups and individuals to express themselves and be protected. Their speech may be morally wrong, but ultimately it is protected speech. I'm going to briefly go over to most common crimes seen within various communities. Again, these stats are from 2023, the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security's Executive Summary. Of the 578 hate-based offenses reported in 2023, the most frequent that were seen were vandalism, destruction of property at around 35%, intimidation. But historically, it's been vandalism and intimidation are the top two offenses that were reported. And again, I like to give that out not so much to law enforcement aspect, but more so members of the community, the congregants. These are the type of crimes they may see within their communities or facilities. With that said, we're going to get into the case briefs. This is more so you'll be able to see the application of HART, which I think is great because I think last time, it was a little new. Like I said, I'm still new in this, but since January, we've kind of tried to hit the ground running, and we've had a lot of great collaboration with the local PDs and getting not only reporting, but of criminal events, but also hate-based events. So we're just trying to get out there as much as we can. But I think within these three briefs, you'll be able to see how HART works and how the role we play. And again, we're not trying to take over anyone's investigation. And if an investigation occurs within your local community or town, like DA Ryan said, we're only staffed of myself and 5 troopers. Of 5 troopers, 4 full-time active duty members of the U.S. Armed Forces. So they do deploy a lot. So we're not in any way or position set up to take over an entire investigation. We are here to assist your community, your PD, if there's any hurdles in the case, if we're here to be a force multiplier to your investigation. And I think in these 3 cases, you'll be able to see that. Especially Beverly, but all 3 you'll be able to see kind of the role HART plays. And again, I want to stress, obviously reporting to your community, your congregants, but for the law enforcement side, we are not here to take over your investigation. We're here to help in any way. If that's surveillance, interviews, follow-up, whatever we can do to help you, that's what we're here to. The old days, state police take over. That's not happening. It's not going to happen. We're not equipped for that. We're just here for assistance only. So if that's possible, I'm going to try to see if I can turn it over to Trooper Grunwald, who is going to do a quick brief on Beverly incident. That was threats to a synagogue up in Beverly. And then Trooper Barbosa will do a quick brief on a tagging incident that occurred at Bridgewater State. Followed up by Trooper L. Hemingway, will get into investigation of anti-Semitic threats in the town of Wayland. So I'm going to see if I can mute.
Hey, Sarge, you can actually keep your screen up.
Perfect.
I'll be good on my end.
Perfect.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Trooper Brady Grunwald. I'm with the HART team. I'm with the Worcester office of the FBI. I personally did not work on this case. But it is a great example of how we work with our federal, local, other state, as well as private sector partners to investigate these incidents. So this Beverly case, you may have heard about it or seen it in the news from a couple months ago. So I guess I'll just get into it and kind of how it started. One of our private sector partners who actively monitors social media for hate-based threats. They came across some threatening messages on 4chan, which, if you don't know, it's an online message board, semi-social media site. So they passed that information that they found over to the FBI's National Threat Operations Center, again, also known as NTOC. NTOC evaluated this information, decided, yes, we did have a credible threat here. And they submitted emergency disclosure requests over to 4chan. 4chan was able to provide the user account information for the suspect account, and that user account information matched a male party who lives out of a Beverly address. Um, so at that time, NTALK notified the duty agent out of the FBI's Lowell office, and that agent looped us in as well. And then NTALK also notified Beverly PD. Beverly PD did a phenomenal job. They took the initiative. They actually went over to the address, knocked on the door, and conducted an interview of that subject. Um, while they were in the doorway having this conversation, they actually observed in plain view a couple firearms as well as Nazi paraphernalia inside the house. And they knew he did not have a license for the firearms. Um, and based on the context of their conversation, again, I wasn't there, so I can't really speak on it, but it was decided that they would Section 12 that subject. And for those of you who don't know, when you Section 12 somebody, you're essentially admitting them to the hospital for a psych eval because they're a threat to either themselves or a threat to others. So, after he was Section 12, Beverly PD wrote up a search warrant for the residence. That search warrant was approved and signed, and they executed that search warrant in the house. In the residence, they found the firearms, some electronic devices, basically everything you're seeing here on the screen. Um, One thing we were able to help out with was the FBI has a phenomenal resource for basically all law enforcement agencies in the region. It's called the Regional Computer Forensics Lab, or CFL. So local departments will be able to submit their electronic devices that they've seized from suspects over to the RCFL, and then the RCFL will go through and evaluate what they find on these electronic devices. Now, one thing I actually didn't quite know until recently is in order for these local departments to submit these electronic devices to the RCFL, they actually have to go through some sort of like a sign-up process. And Beverly PD, essentially, because they hadn't done that, they were unable to submit these devices over to the RCFL to get dumped and looked at. So, using our federal connections, that was something we were able to work out on their behalf. A process that's typically takes months and months and months to do, actually only just took a couple weeks and allowed us to move forward with the investigation, which was great. So, in terms of charges themselves, we brought in the ATF to take a look at what we had in terms of the firearms to see if what we had was best suited for federal firearms charges or state charges. And the ATF, with their help, it was determined that it was best to go with state charges for the firearms. The Essex District Attorney's Office took care of that and charged them with what you see here on the screen. And we also looped in the United States Attorney's Office over in Boston. They actually recently stood up a civil rights and hate crimes unit themselves, and they assigned an assistant United States attorney over to this case with the hopes of charging the suspect with some federal hate crimes charges. So, let's see, in terms of the suspect himself, they had a dangerousness hearing for him. He's found to be dangerous, so he's still being held at a house of correction. Now, the fallout afterwards, obviously it hit the news. People were concerned in the community. So one thing the FBI and Heart members did was we went out to some of these community outreach events just to speak with some of the community members and hear their concerns. So that's just a quick example of what Heart does.
And just to touch on that, so that was probably, from my standpoint, the most vital role we played in that case, not just the investigation side and helping out with the to expedite the cell phone extraction, the electronic document extraction, but obviously these hate crimes and hate-based incidents, it's not just the victim, it's the entire community, and that's what makes these crimes, a little different than the standard crime that we deal with, at least on the law enforcement aspect, in my opinion. And when we attended the community gathering at the local temple, you could see the fear, you could see the outrage, the concern in all the members there. The subject lived very closely to the temple. I believe it was 1.5 miles. So rightfully so, all the members of the synagogue believed that, his intention was to come to their synagogue and kill them all. So they were very concerned. They had a lot of questions. And again, the mayor was there, the police chief was there. He did a great job. DA Tucker was there, did a phenomenal job. And members of our unit, as well as the FBI, like I said, we're just a force multiplier. We don't get in the way. We just stand on the wall. If we're there, we basically just try to answer follow-up questions that members of the community say they don't want to ask in public, or they don't want to ask in front of a large group. We're there, like I said, to be a force multiplier, to basically, in that case, Beverly PD, to augment their detective unit, who I believe they just had two members there, and we just mill around, answer follow-up questions until the community then is done, and just say, hey, we're here to support in any way we can. If you have follow-up questions you didn't want to ask, feel free to come up and ask us. That I think was most impressive to me in terms of our role. But thank you, Brady, for that. I don't know if Trooper Barbosa is on. Hopefully she is. Jess, are you there?
I am. Thank
Okay.
you, Sergeant Owens. Hello, everyone. I am Trooper Jesse Barbosa of Mass State Police, as well assigned to the anti-terrorism unit with the hate crimes awareness and response team. This is one of the cases that we worked on in conjunction with the Bridgewater State University. You might have seen it on the news as well, because there was a write-up on it. And this individual is still in custody. And it just shows like the outstanding job, not only that local police departments do, but our local partners, and as well, like, as the assistance that Heart can provide. So to just give you an overview of this case, this first came in as a tag-in. As you can see on the top right corner, that is one of the stickers that was found in Bridgewater State University by Bridgewater Campus Police. Detective Captain McVoy of Bridgewater State University Campus Police actually contacted State Police looking for Heart's assistance in this matter. They had received complaints from students that attended school there on the campus commuter parking lot. They had found several of these stickers throughout of the parking lot and had reported it. The Bridgewater State University Campus Police then proceeded to review cameras that were available, poll cameras that were available. In those camera videos, they were able to view an individual. They saw an individual on camera that was putting these pictures up, as well as recording himself putting these pictures and stickers up, and also doing the Nazi salute. They also were able to observe a white Ford 2008 truck F-350, which had a distinct ranch trailer on the back. It looked like it would be like a landscaping truck. It further investigated, which then resulted to a person registered in Rainham. They went to that person's house in Rainham and interviewed him. He then disclosed that the vehicle was being used by an employee and provided the employee's information. And further investigation revealed that the employee and the person viewed on camera were the same person. The Bridgewater State University Police Department, then campus police, then requested a warrant for the individual's arrest, and also requested a warrant for the individual's cell phone because he was seen recording himself while committing these crimes and tagging the campus parking lot. We then collaborated with the Bridgewater State University and also with the owner of the vehicle, and were able to get him to a specific location in order for us to apply the search warrant for both his phone and his arrest warrant. We were successful in apprehending the individual, and we also attempted interviewing the individual. However, he did not want to disclose anything to us other than he did admit to sticker bombing several areas in Bridgewater State University campus, as well as Bridgewater town. After we secured the cell phone, we were able to assist Bridgewater State University, and this is something that HART has the ability to provide assistance with. Bridgewater State University, being a really small department, didn't have the capabilities to do a phone extraction in the time period that they were looking for. They usually use an outside entity, which would take longer. So we were able to actually get this done within 2 to 3 days. The phone extraction revealed some very concerning things in reviewing his pictures and videos that he had taken. As you can see from the pictures on the slide, these are some of the pictures we found on his phone that were very concerning. The pictures on the slide are a little small to fit them in the slide, but if you were to zoom in, you would see that there was what appeared to be explosive device as well as ammunition in his bedroom, and several memorabilia, Nazi memorabilia and propaganda. And these were very concerning to us, and as well to Bridgewater State University campus police. So Detective McAvoy informed Bridgewater police of this. And in our investigation, we came to find out that he was actually renting a room right next to the police station, Bridgewater police. So then Bridgewater police, in conjunction with the HART team and as well as state police bomb unit, we went to the residence and served a search warrant for his bedroom. And we were able to determine that the explosive device and the ammunitions seen on the pictures were deemed to be airsoft or replicas, and no danger at all of activating. So Bridgewater State University, as well as Bridgewater PD, both filed similar charges against the individual, who was then identified as Michael Budry. He was arrested and charged with defacement of property, tagging, multiple counts of tagging, both in Bridgewater State University as well as in the town of Bridgewater. The bail clerk first set the bail at $50,000, and then it was reduced to $2,500 with conditions of release. As of today, he's still being held. He's scheduled for a pretrial hearing today, actually. In this case, is still being investigated due to other information that has come out. But it's still being investigated by both the FBI and the HART team, and the HART team is still following along, obviously, because it has a HART addendum to it.
Thank you for that, Jesse. again, like you can see the coordination with Hart as well as with the campus police. Another example, we're not trying to take over anyone's investigation. We're just trying to assist in any way we can to further your investigation along. And ultimately, it goes back to, like I keep repeating, the collaboration. That's not only collaboration with local PDs, it's collaboration with members of the community, because without them, as we all know, these investigations cannot be pursued criminally. It's not going to happen. We need participation from our community members, faith-based organizations. Like I said, members of our community may not want to come forward and talk to the police. So that's why we are trying to leverage as many partnerships as we can. Next up, we have an investigation that was initiated by the Wayland Police Department, and Hart was able to assist on this. I don't know if Trooper El Hemaway is on, if he's there. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Krim, are you on?
I'm here, sir.
Okay, perfect.
I was just sitting next to Jesse. How do I move it to get the? Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Trooper Kareem El Hemaway, also with the Hart team here, and as a task force officer with the Joint Terrorism Task Force. So this is a case. This is a very fairly recent case. It's still ongoing. It's only about a month old, but I think this is a really good case that highlights what we can bring to the table to local police departments and other local partners in terms of, as Sergeant Owens was saying, as a force multiplier. So this case started in Wayland PD. A California-based subject was sending anti-Semitic threatening emails to a Massachusetts-based victim. The victim reported this incident to Wayland Police Department. The civil rights officer at Wayland PD, Sergeant Henderson, carried his investigation, and he was able to determine that the subject is out in California, facing a jurisdictional constraint here. That's when Sergeant Henderson reached out to the Hart team for assistance and support, and we were able to, on our end, open up an FBI assessment, and we were able to push the lead out to FBI LA office and request that they go out and interview the subject on behalf of Wayland Police Department. Once we did that, that's when we learned through the FBI database baseline checks that the same subject has another FBI assessment opened already by FBI LA for a similar incident that is being investigated by Santa Monica PD. So working with FBI LA, Santa Monica PD, we kept going down following the evidence, and found a third incident with the LA Sheriff's Department that was also being investigated by their detectives for another incident where he was sending California-based victims anti-Semitic threatening emails. Santa Monica PD arrested the individual. 6 days later, he was arrested a second time by the LA Sheriff's Department in the course of their investigation. And we were able to gather all that evidence, that they collect that evidence from Santa Monica and the LA Sheriff's Department, and send it back to the Wayland Police Department civil rights officer. So that way, his case is now just much stronger. Some of the evidence that they were able to collect was during the interview at Santa Monica PD. The subject actually admitted to having access and owning and sending the emails from the email account. And the LA Sheriff's Department, they served Google with a search warrant for subscriber info, and they collected other evidence that ties into the email account. So having all that information, we're able to send it all back to the Wayland Police Department, which just kind of streamlined their case so that they are able to proceed with their charges. 2 days ago, we actually met with the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Chelsea, and she is she recommended that we move forward with interstate cyber stalking charge against the subject. So currently we're working with FBI LA and the U.S. Attorney's Office in California and the LA district to see if they would be willing to, take out the charges there since the subject is there, or do we do it here? And that's kind of pending some more guidance, but that's going to hopefully come soon. So Santa Monica PD charged him with hate crime, criminal threats, same charges for the LA Sheriff's Department and Wayland PD. And the last time I talked to Sergeant Henderson was 4 or 5 days ago, and I think he's coordinating with the Middlesex District Attorney's Office about it, the charges, but he plans to charge him with civil rights violation, criminal harassment, and threats to commit a crime. Pending any questions, I'll throw it back to Sergeant Owens.
So yeah, I think that case again highlights, it ultimately starts with the local police department's jurisdiction and getting that information in, getting great documentation like Sergeant Henderson did, interviewing the victim, pursuing the case at the state level. Ultimately, that case most likely would have just ended there had he not reached out to us with the ATU Heart unit, and we're able to leverage, like I said, I keep repeating, but our partnership, our role as task force officers with the FBI, we're able to, utilize their resources right away, real time, and get this information. And now it's not going just state level, it's going national. Without that, it would have been the investigation at Wayland most likely would have just ended up, with the subject just getting charged. And if the subject happened to come to Massachusetts, he happened to get arrested, happened to have contact with law enforcement. If law enforcement happened to have a reason to run the individual and maybe determine that he had an outstanding charge, maybe they would have been arrested. But that's a lot of ifs, that's a lot of maybes that most likely wouldn't have happened. So that case probably would have ended there through Trooper Al Hemaway's investigative efforts. Now it's able to go nationally, and we're able to see the case move forward, not only at the state level, which is great, but now at the federal level. And as we've seen, like I said, in the short time I've been here, you see the same type of people, or the same people who are committing these crimes. They're not just doing it once. They're not sending one threat and walking away. It's usually repeated threats. So I think this, again, is another great case that we've worked in. All three of these cases have been recent. None of them are old. And, it's unfortunate, but we just want to get that out there, that again, to the PDs, obviously the DA's office, and community members out there. We want to get the reporting in. We encourage it, even if it's not a crime. We want to get the education out there. Not to take up too much more of your time, but I do want to go over briefly some initiatives that HART has. We talked about civil rights officers. For those who don't know, I don't believe we kind of went over it, but it's just a police officer designated or assigned by the police chief to serve as a liaison between the community, the victim, and the police department. The CRO attempts to establish direct personal, professional relationships with the members of the community, particularly true for members of groups within protected classes that may be targets of discrimination, of hate crimes. The purpose of the position is to build relationships, communicating with the victims and the community at large. Also, the CROs try to assist with training to other officers and how to respond on the law enforcement end and provide support to the victims. ATU Heart has compiled a list of 399 CROs within the Commonwealth. Nothing obviously precludes the police chief to designate more than one, but even just identifying the 399 like we did, that was a vast undertaking. People retire, new people come in, but it's obviously a moving list, so to speak. ATU Heart has established a Microsoft team page to bring together CROs and law enforcement agencies across the Commonwealth, as Heart seeks, like I said, to strengthen the statewide response to hate crimes and hate-based incidents, supporting community members, local, state, federal law enforcement agencies, for better information sharing and data collection. Secondly on the list is the CJIS-based portal. For those not familiar, not in law enforcement, CJIS is the criminal justice information system where law enforcement officers do certain database checks, for instance, just a license check to see if a person has an expired active license, as well as many other things. But through the portal, Heart has secured funding and is in the active process of developing a CJIS-based portal for CROs to enter hate crime and hate-based incidents within their city or town. The portal is due to come online late summer. It will come with training for associated CROs or detectives. The goal of the portal is to streamline and enhance reporting. Obviously, I do want to stress this reporting via the portal will not negate reporting to NIBRS. But again, it looks to streamline reporting. So when the reporting comes in to the frontline officer, and then it gets kicked either to the CRO or to the detective ultimately, or the CRO can make that determination. Okay, yes, this does need to be entered, or no, this was not a hate crime. Or this was something else. But ultimately, we're here to support law enforcement as well as the community. And I stress, like the Beverly incident, we're here to support, any community event you may have. Unfortunately, a lot of times during these crimes, the public doesn't know what to do, or the community doesn't know what to do. It's great to have community gatherings following or post-incident. Heart can go out and support your community, your law enforcement members, your agency, just to, again, be a force multiplier to help answer and provide resources to community members. Ultimately, I do want to stress for the faith-based organizations out there and the leaders that are on the call or may see this later, please contact the Department of Jurisdiction if one of your members is involved in a hate crime or hate-based incident. The police department should then contact the Commonwealth Fusion Center. When I say contact, it can be an email, it can be a cell phone, it can be a telephone call, but the best practice would be an email, attach the incident-based report, and then that way Heart will be notified. Another way you can notify us, I'll put up our email. We have an inbox. It's not monitored 24/7, but we do stay up to date on it. But primarily, since the CFC is staffed 24/7, the best way, if an incident does occur in your community, for law enforcement, obviously to document, it could be a preliminary report, but just document the incident, kick it over to the Fusion Center, and we will be notified. And then if one of the Heart members, myself or someone else, will reach out to you. And again, if you don't need our assistance, it's easy. That's just a no. We're not sensitive about it. If you say no, that is completely fine. If you don't need our help, it's no big deal. We're just going to reach out to make sure you guys don't need help in any way. If there doesn't need additional people at a community event, no harm, no foul at all. But again, we just like to stay in the loop as much as possible. And we're right now, since, like I said, I've only been here in January. Most of the unit is new, but we've done a lot in the short time we've been here. And we're just trying to get out the word as much as we can in terms of how, if and when a hate-based incident comes within your community. I just want to double check to make sure I didn't miss anything. I'm sure I probably did. But again, this is our email, msphart@pol.state.ma.us. Also, you can contact the Fusion Center for law enforcement people on the line, and that would just be like I said, a quick email. Doesn't have to be anything long. Attach the incident report. It can even be in draft mode. Doesn't have to be approved, just so we are aware. And then a member, like I said, will reach out to you. But I know it might have been brief. I'm not sure. I can kind of talk for a little bit, but I really want to thank DA Ryan for all her support, the platform, the leadership that she's shown in this area. No offense to DA Tucker in Essex County or the other DAs, but I really think Middlesex, obviously I'm biased due to my time in the SPDU, but I really think Middlesex leads the way in this platform. Just having this opportunity to speak with the task force is another example of that. So I want to thank ADA Thompson as well for her continued collaboration on this. Megan Kelly for even just making that introduction to us. So hopefully it's a long partnership, and our goal for HART, or my goal for HART, is to get out there as much as possible, not only within Middlesex County, but each county throughout the Commonwealth. But like I said, we are a smaller unit, and this is a collateral duty of our of a part of the anti-terrorism unit. But with that being said, we are not diminishing any of these crimes that occur. We want to be notified in any way we can. A lot of times that's through law enforcement, but a lot of times it could be us, social media or something in the news. So if there's something out there, we would love to hear about it. Unfortunately, like I said, these cases do happen. They happen a lot, and we're here to support in any way we can on the education aspects, to law enforcement, to your community members, as much as we can. And I think that's all I got, unless if there's any questions out there, hopefully I can answer them. If not, I can get back to you and get an answer for you. So.
Thanks, Sergeant. That was great. You got clearly done a lot, even just in the 6 months or so since we talked last. So I appreciate it. Thank you, the troopers as well, for joining us. Those are pretty interesting cases, and give, I think, a good idea of the scope of what's happening in our communities. Anybody have questions, comments for Sergeant Owens or the other troopers?
Reverend Lloyd? Yeah.
Hey, good morning. Thank you so much. Appreciate your presentation. If I'm understanding you correctly, there is the possibility of directly an email, that kind of thing, to report some incident or experience or what have you. The other part of it is that it goes to our, local police, what have you. What do you do to help? Because that means my local police become the gatekeeper here, and their capacity to say this really has the potential to be a hate crime or whatever it is. What do you do to help so it's not just the CROs, one person in a department, to get them to raise that level so it doesn't get, on the community side, it's a frustration. I feel like I didn't get through. On the other side is the idea that, this isn't going anywhere. What do you have to say?
Great question. And that has happened. And that's where we utilize our partnerships. As much as I can, we've contacted the BPD Civil Rights Unit. We've worked with them. They've had stuff outside of, say, Boston proper, and they've been notified about instances. And if the victim in some of these cases have experienced exactly what you're saying, they've gone to their local PD, explain the situation or the incident, and the local PD would document it, but that's where it stopped. So then the victim was then utilizing their relationships with, say, BPD or another agency, and then they're contacting us. And then we're, for lack of a better term, we're spitballing it, right? We're going over, okay, what is ultimately there has to be an underlying crime. So unfortunately, no matter how heinous, like I said, reprehensible a lot of these incidents are, legally, and obviously the DA can speak way better than me on that because I'm not a lawyer, but it has to be a crime. So is there a crime? And then let's go through it. Let's slow it down. Is it motivated by bias? Okay. Then we're okay. Now we're over the hump. But to answer your question, we're using partnerships as much as we can. And if that's utilizing the DA's office, obviously not just Middlesex County, but Suffolk County. Okay, ultimately, this is what we have. Let's get an ADA involved and review this. Some counties do have, a specified civil rights ADA. Some of them don't. But nevertheless, let's get some input from a prosecutor who's going to be, bringing the case forward. So to answer your question, for us, if we were made aware of it, and that would be, we're completely fine with that too. If you go to your local PD, you can still kick it to us. We want as much information, and obviously we work with the FBI. We're full-time members of the Joint Terrorism Task Force. So with that being said, those words sometimes connotate a little scary for some people, but the main message behind that is we're trying to get as much information as we can in this space. It's not your job or your community members to determine, is it a crime? If they experience something that they feel like this could be a hate-based incident, we want it. And that's what we're encouraging when we do education on the police side. That's what we're encouraging. Let your community members encourage the reporting from the community, get input from ADA, and then let's move the case forward. If they say no, okay, at least we can go back to the victim and say, listen, we've gone out, we've documented, we took pictures of the scene, we've invested, we take witness statements, we've gotten surveillance. Okay, now we've consulted the district attorney's office, looped them in on it, and this is what we came back to. And at least in my experience, at least the victim who has experienced this incident, it may not be a crime, but at least they are somewhat made whole that this investigation was taken seriously. It wasn't just brushed aside, like you said, one person saying, no, it stops here. So we're encouraging the reporting as much as we can. So again, we're encouraging the reporting to local PDs, and we're encouraging the education too. And that if that's us, we're trying as much as we can to get out into different communities, because there's a lot of communities that don't have the representation, they don't have the means, they don't have their own fusion centers that pump this information that they can call. So we are gladly willing to take that. We're not afraid to getting, lack of a better term, double tapped with information. If there's information out there regarding something that may be a crime, we would love to hear about it. And like I said, leverage any partnership we can.
And Reverend, even if it's not a crime, we encourage people that we can use our form as well, because we can hook in with the Heart Team. We also want to use it to direct our resources. You may have a community where lots of terrible things are happening, incredibly offensive things. They're not crimes, but that is a place where we're going to want to go and maybe have a community meeting, maybe bring people from the Heart Team to talk about that. So there are lots of things we can be doing besides just a prosecution.
Mhm.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you to everyone. We will meet again, and thank you, Sergeant Owens, the troopers. Thank you for being here, for doing that. Really made great progress in the last 5 or 6 months. We will meet next month, June 26th, back at our regular time, 10 a.m. So thank you, folks. Be safe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Reverend Lord, are you still there?
I can get you his information to reach out to him.
Yeah, perfect. That'd be awesome, because my family actually knows him. I haven't seen him in years, but yeah, he'd be a great resource. And
Oh, wait a minute, he's coming back. Hold on.
Oh, perfect.
He must have caught you at the end.
So, hey, Antonia, how you doing?
I'm good.
Reverend, are you still on?
You're good?
Thank you
Matt,
for your
Matt
question.
wanted to talk to you.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember me. You know my family, Eddie and Maureen Owens.
Oh, extremely so. Extremely so.
When you got on, I like right away smiles. I was like, oh, I couldn't believe it. I can't wait to tell them that we spoke. But yeah, I'm so glad you were on, because you know, it's kind of been a whirlwind